It was about 3 weeks ago on a holiday in Kenya. We had a little private time away together.
The diagnosis. October mornings at Windsor usually brought Catherine peace. The children were at school, William was reviewing briefings, and she had carved out time for what should have been a routine medical checkup. Nothing concerning, just the annual screening that royal protocol demanded for all senior members of the family. Dr. Sarah Mitchell had been Catherine's physician for 12 years, long enough to read the subtle shifts in her patient's demeanor. Today, those shifts weren't subtle. The ultrasound had revealed something unexpected, something that required immediate follow-up testing. "I'm seeing an irregularity," Dr. Mitchell said carefully, her professional composure masking concern. "It's likely nothing, but we need to run additional scans. Today, if possible." Catherine felt the room tilt slightly. What kind of irregularity? "A mass, small, but in a location that requires investigation. I've already contacted specialists at King Edward VII Hospital. They can see you this afternoon." The word mass hung in the air like a threat. Catherine had lost her mother-in-law to illness, watched friends battle cancer, and understood intimately what those clinical terms could mean. But understanding intellectually and facing it personally were entirely different experiences. "Does William need to know? Before we have answers?" Dr. Mitchell's expression softened. "That's your decision. But in my experience, facing uncertainty alone makes it heavier, not lighter." Catherine found William in his study, surrounded by papers for an upcoming environmental summit. He looked up with the smile reserved only for her, open, unguarded, present. It fractured when he saw her face. "What's wrong?" she told him plainly, without minimizing or dramatizing. William listened without interrupting, his expression shifting from confusion to comprehension to something harder to name. Fear, perhaps, or fury at the unfairness of it. "We go together," he said simply. "This afternoon. I'll clear my schedule. William, you have the Commonwealth reception. I don't care." His voice was sharp, then softened. "Catherine, nothing matters more than this. Nothing." They sat in silence for several minutes, holding hands across his desk, the papers forgotten. Outside, Windsor Castle continued its ancient rhythms, tourists, staff, the machinery of monarchy grinding forward. Inside this room, time had stopped. King Edward VII Hospital maintained a private entrance for royal patients, a discreet side door that bypassed public areas entirely. Catherine and William arrived at 3 p.m., their security detail creating a protective perimeter that felt both necessary and suffocating. The specialist, Dr. James Worthington, was waiting. His reputation preceded him, one of Britain's leading oncologists, though that title remained unspoken during introductions. They didn't need his credentials announced to understand why he'd been called. The scans took 90 minutes. Catherine lay still in the MRI machine, the mechanical rhythm of imaging both monotonous and terrifying. William waited in an adjacent room, his phone filling with urgent messages from palace staff that he ignored completely. When the images were ready, Dr. Worthington didn't make them wait. "There's a mass in your left ovary, approximately 3 centimeters. We won't know if it's malignant without a biopsy, but the imaging characteristics are concerning." "How concerning?" William's voice was steady, but Catherine felt his hand tighten around hers. "Concerning enough that I'm recommending surgery within the week. We'll biopsy during the procedure and, if necessary, proceed with more extensive intervention immediately." Catherine processed the information with the same composure she'd brought to every crisis of her public life. "What are the timelines? For results? For recovery?" "Biopsy results in 3 days post-surgery. Recovery depends on what we find, but you're looking at a minimum of 2 weeks before resuming any public duties, possibly longer." In the car back to Windsor, neither spoke initially. The London streets blurred past, ordinary people living ordinary days, unaware that inside this vehicle, 2 people were watching their world tilt. "We have to tell the children," Catherine said finally. "Not yet, not until we know more. William, if this is serious, if the surgery is extensive, they'll notice. George especially. He's not a little boy anymore." William's jaw tightened. "I can't." He stopped, restarted. "I can't tell our children their mother might have cancer without knowing if it's true. And if we wait and it is true, they'll never trust us to tell them hard things again." The argument was gentle but firm, years of partnership allowing them to disagree without fracturing. Eventually, William relented. They'd tell the children together tonight with age-appropriate honesty that neither protected them from reality nor burdened them with uncertainty. Adelaide Cottage's warmth felt particularly precious that evening. Catherine cooked dinner herself, spaghetti, the children's favorite, normal and comforting. George, Charlotte, and Louis chattered about their school day, oblivious to the weight their parents carried. After dinner, William and Catherine gathered them in the sitting room. George, at 14, immediately sensed something wrong. Charlotte, 12, grew quiet. Louis, at 9, looked between his parents with concern. "Mummy has to have a small surgery next week," Catherine began, her voice calm and clear. "The doctors found something they need to look at more carefully." "What kind of something?" George asked, his maturity showing. Catherine didn't flinch from honesty. "A growth. They need to remove it and test it to make sure it's not anything serious." "Like cancer?" Charlotte's voice was small. "Possibly. We don't know yet. That's why they're testing." William leaned forward. "What we do know is that Mummy has the best doctors. We caught this early, and we're going to face whatever comes next as a family." Louis climbed into Catherine's lap, unusual for a 9-year-old trying to assert independence, but fear overrode pride. "Are you scared, Mummy?" Catherine wrapped her arms around him, meeting William's eyes over their youngest son's head. "A little bit, but mostly I'm focused on getting through this and getting back to normal as quickly as possible." George stood abruptly, mumbled something about homework, and left the room. Catherine moved to follow, but William stopped her. "I'll go." William found George in his bedroom, staring at his computer screen without seeing it. He sat on the edge of the bed, waiting. Eventually, George spoke. "She's going to die, isn't she?" "We don't know that. We won't know until after the surgery. But it's possible." William couldn't lie. "Yes, it's possible." George's composure cracked. "I can't, Papa. I can't lose her. Not like you lost Grandma Diana." William pulled his son close, feeling the boy. Not quite a man, not quite a child, shake with suppressed tears. "Listen to me. Your mother is strong. We have excellent doctors, and we're doing everything possible. But you're right. There's a chance this could be serious. And if it is, we face it together. All of us. I'm supposed to be king one day," George whispered. "How am I supposed to do that if I can't even handle this?" "By being human. By allowing yourself to feel fear and sadness and uncertainty. That's not weakness, George. That's what makes you capable of genuine leadership." They sat together in the darkening room, father and son united by shared fear and love, knowing that tomorrow would bring more uncertainty, more waiting, more questions without answers. Downstairs, Catherine held Charlotte and Louis, telling them stories, maintaining normalcy even as their world threatened to fracture. This was her gift, the ability to be present, to comfort, to make her children feel safe even when she felt anything but. Outside Adelaide Cottage, royal protection officers maintained their perimeter, unaware of the crisis unfolding within. Tomorrow, palace machinery would need to be informed. Schedules would be rearranged, cover stories prepared, and the relentless machinery of royal life adjusted to accommodate personal tragedy. But tonight was just for them, a family facing an uncertain future, holding on to each other in the only way they knew how. The palace machinery dawn brought no clarity, only logistics. William contacted Sir Clive Alderton before 6 a.m., knowing the palace needed time to prepare for what was coming. The king's private secretary had managed countless crises, scandals, deaths, and abdications across generations, but this one carried personal weight. Catherine wasn't just the Princess of Wales, she was family. "Surgery is scheduled for Tuesday," William said without preamble. "We're announcing Monday evening that Catherine is having a planned medical procedure. Nothing more specific until we have biopsy results." "The press will speculate wildly," Clive warned. "Let them speculate. We're not feeding the beast until we know what we're dealing with." There was respect in Clive's silence. William had learned when to bend to protocol and when to break it. This was breaking time. While William managed palace communications, Catherine made her own calls. First to her parents, Carol answered on the second ring, mother's intuition sensing a crisis before words confirmed it. "Mom, I need you to listen without panicking." "Oh God, darling, what's happened?" Catherine explained with the same calm efficiency she'd shown the children. Carol cried. Michael took the phone and offered steady support, and by the conversation's end, they'd committed to coming to Windsor immediately. Some burdens required family. Next, Catherine called her brother James. They'd grown closer in recent years, his own mental health struggles creating unexpected common ground. I'm telling you because I need someone outside the royal bubble who understands what it's like when your body betrays you. You're going to be fine, James said fiercely, and if you're not fine, we'll figure out what fine looks like going forward. But Kate, you're the strongest person I know. This doesn't change that. Charles arrived at Windsor unannounced, a rare break from protocol that signaled the depth of his concern. He found Catherine in the garden, cutting roses with determined focus, a meditation through action. "William told me," Charles said simply. "I came to see if there's anything you need." Catherine set down her shears. "Honestly, I need time to rewind to yesterday when my biggest concern was George's history essay." Charles smiled slightly. "I'm afraid I can't manage that. But I can offer you this. Whatever happens, whatever you need, time off, resources, complete privacy, you have it. No questions, no palace politics. Thank you." Catherine's composure wavered briefly. "I keep thinking about Diana, about how public her struggles were, how every illness became a spectacle. I can't do that. You won't have to. We've learned, painfully, slowly, but we've learned. Your health is yours to manage as you see fit." William and Catherine made a decision: maintain normalcy for the children as long as possible. School continued, activities proceeded, and routines held firm. George, Charlotte, and Louis needed stability more than transparency. But George was struggling. His history teacher noted distraction and uncharacteristic errors in his usually meticulous work. When questioned, he claimed fatigue. The teacher, unaware of the family crisis, accepted this but remained concerned. Charlotte responded differently, becoming almost aggressively cheerful, entertaining Louis with jokes and games, filling every silence with noise. Classic coping mechanism, the child psychologist later explained. Some children collapse under stress, others perform harder. Louis, the youngest, reverted slightly, asking to sleep in his parents' room, requiring more physical comfort, exhibiting separation anxiety when Catherine left his sight. Normal, expected, heartbreaking. Princess Anne appeared at Adelaide Cottage on Saturday morning, characteristically direct. William called, "I'm here to be useful." Catherine, grateful for Anne's no-nonsense approach, put her to work. Together they organized the children's schedules for the coming weeks, identifying which commitments could be kept and which required rescheduling. Anne's military precision was oddly comforting, reducing catastrophe to logistics, chaos to checklists. "You're terrified," Anne observed while reviewing Charlotte's piano lesson schedule. "Constantly." "Good. Fear means you understand the stakes. It's the people who aren't scared who make fatal mistakes." Anne looked up from her notes. "But fear doesn't have to be paralyzing. Channel it into preparation. Control what you can control and accept that some things remain beyond your power." Is that what you did when you had health scares? "Every time." Worked reasonably well. Anne's dry humor cut through the tension. "Though I should mention, I'm terrible at the emotional support part. I can organize, strategize, and execute. But if you need someone to hold your hand and tell you everything will be fine, call Catherine's mother." Catherine laughed, despite everything. Noted. Monday evening, as planned, the palace released a brief statement. The Princess of Wales will undergo a planned medical procedure this week and will be recovering privately for approximately 2 weeks. She thanks the public for their understanding and requests privacy for her family during this time. Within minutes, speculation exploded. Twitter erupted with theories ranging from mundane to absurd. News channels assembled royal experts to analyze the 32-word statement for hidden meanings. Bookmakers started taking odds on various diagnoses. William watched the circus from his study, disgusted but unsurprised. "They're treating her medical privacy like a parlor game." "That's what they do," Catherine said from the doorway. "We knew this would happen. Knowing and experiencing are different." Catherine joined him at the window. "Tomorrow I have surgery. In 3 days we'll know if my life fundamentally changes. What strangers on Twitter think matters precisely 0%. I hate that you have to be strong about this. I'm not being strong. I'm being practical. One of us needs to fall apart, and you've already claimed that role." The joke landed, as intended. William pulled her close, grateful for a partnership that allowed vulnerability without judgment. Monday night was quiet. The children were asleep, arrangements were made, and bags were packed for the hospital. William and Catherine sat in their bedroom, neither particularly interested in the pretense of sleep. "Worst-case scenario," Catherine said suddenly. "Say it out loud." William looked at her, startled. "Why would we?" "Because I need to know we've thought about it. If we don't acknowledge the worst possibility, it has power over us. If we name it, we control it." William was quiet for a long moment. "Worst case, it's malignant and aggressive. You need extensive surgery and treatment. We spend the next year fighting this instead of living our lives. The children watch their mother struggle. I watch my wife." His voice cracked. "And we get through it," Catherine finished, "because that's what we do. We've survived media attacks, family drama, and unrelenting scrutiny. We can survive this too. I can't lose you. You won't. But if the universe has other plans, we'll face those too." They held each other in the darkness, two people who'd spent years in the public eye learning to be private with each other. Tomorrow would bring surgery, uncertainty, and fear. Tonight was just them. At 2 a.m., neither sleeping, William whispered, "I love you more than I've ever managed to say." "I know," Catherine replied. "I've always known." The surgery Tuesday morning broke gray and cold. Catherine dressed in comfortable clothes, leggings, an oversized sweater, and no jewelry except her wedding ring. Looking at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. Not the Princess of Wales, polished and perfect, just Catherine, scared and human. The drive to King Edward VII Hospital was silent. William held her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm, a gesture from their early days together that still conveyed more than words. Their protection detail maintained professional distance, but even they seemed subdued, aware that something significant was unfolding. Dr. Worthington met them personally, bypassing standard pre-op procedures for a private consultation. "We'll do the biopsy first. If it's benign, we remove the mass and you're done. If it's malignant, we proceed immediately with more extensive surgery. I won't know until I'm in there." "How extensive?" Catherine asked. "Potentially full hysterectomy. I need your consent to make that decision during surgery if necessary." The words landed like physical blows. Catherine was 42. They'd discussed having more children but never firmly decided against it. Losing that choice suddenly, irrevocably, felt like amputation. "You have my consent," she said steadily. "Do whatever's necessary." The waiting room reserved for royal families was luxurious by hospital standards, with comfortable furniture, a private bathroom, phone chargers, and fresh coffee. William hated every inch of it. Luxury couldn't mask the essential truth. He was waiting to learn if his wife had cancer. Charles joined him 2 hours into the surgery, bringing sandwiches William couldn't eat and company he didn't want but needed. "Anne sends her regards. She's with the children," Charles said, settling into the adjacent chair. "Thank you for that." They sat in silence, two men who'd spent lifetimes performing composure, now stripped of pretense. Finally, Charles spoke. "When your mother was sick, the hardest part wasn't the treatment or the pain. It was the helplessness, watching someone you love suffer and being unable to fix it. Is that supposed to be comforting? No, it's supposed to be honest."
Now, before the death of the Queen, Princess Anne sat down with Chris Shipp, the ITV royal editor and Sunrise contributor.
"You're about to learn, possibly, how to be powerless. No amount of money, title, or influence changes cancer. All you can do is be present." William looked at his father, seeing something unfamiliar: vulnerability. "How did you survive it?" "By focusing on what I could control. Small things, making sure she was comfortable, coordinating with doctors, managing the children's routines. Purpose helps when you can't have power." 4 hours into surgery, Dr. Worthington appeared. His expression was carefully neutral, professional training overriding whatever news he carried. The biopsy was conclusive. Stage 1, ovarian cancer, caught early. "We've performed a complete hysterectomy and removed all visible cancer cells. The margins look clean." William felt the world tilt. Cancer, the word they'd feared, now confirmed. "What's the prognosis?" "Excellent, actually. Stage 1, early detection, complete surgical removal. She has a 90% 5-year survival rate. She'll need monitoring, probably some chemotherapy as a preventative measure." But Catherine caught this remarkably early. "Can I see her?" "She's in recovery. Give us 30 minutes." Catherine surfaced from anesthesia slowly, the world fuzzy at the edges. William's face materialized first, worried, exhausted, beloved. "Hey!" she managed, her voice scratchy. "Hey, yourself." He kissed her forehead. "You're okay? It was cancer, but they got it all. You're going to be okay." The news sank in gradually. Cancer, hysterectomy, okay. The contradictions would take time to process, but for now, relief dominated. She was alive. The nightmare had boundaries. The children? At home with Anne. "I'll call them once you're more alert." Catherine closed her eyes, felt tears slip free. William wiped them gently, staying close, anchoring her through morphine and shock and the overwhelming gratitude of survival. 2 hours later, sufficiently recovered for conversation, Catherine insisted on video calling the children. Anne positioned them in the sitting room, 3 worried faces crowding the screen. "Mummy!" Louis practically shouted. "Hi, darling, I'm okay. The surgery went well and I'll be home in a few days." George, perceptive as always, asked the question, "Was it cancer?" Catherine met William's eyes, then decided on honesty. "Yes, but the doctors removed it all. I'm going to be fine." Charlotte started crying silently. George's face went carefully blank. Louis looked confused, too young to fully understand, but old enough to sense the gravity. "Listen to me," Catherine said firmly. "All 3 of you. This is scary, and it's okay to be scared. But I'm going to recover, and we're going to get through this together. I promise." After the call ended, Catherine let herself break. The composure she'd maintained for the children shattered, and she sobbed. Fear, relief, grief for the children she'd never have, gratitude for the ones she had. William held her through it all, whispering reassurances, being the strength she'd always been for him. Wednesday morning, the palace released an updated statement. The Princess of Wales underwent successful surgery for a medical condition. She is recovering well and thanks the medical team at King Edward VII Hospital for their exceptional care. Further details will remain private. Speculation continued, but William had instructed palace communications to ignore all inquiries. They'd release information on their timeline, not the media's. Messages poured in, from world leaders, celebrities, ordinary citizens. The public response was overwhelmingly supportive, a reminder that beneath the criticism and scrutiny, many people genuinely cared. Harry called from California. The conversation was awkward, too much history, too little recent connection, but genuine. "If you need anything, we're here." "Thank you," William said, and meant it. Catherine's first night post-surgery was difficult. Pain medication helped, but couldn't eliminate discomfort. She dozed intermittently, waking to check monitors, nurse visits, and the unfamiliar sounds of hospital nights. William slept in the chair beside her bed, refusing the offered cot. When she woke at 3 a.m., disoriented and hurting, he was there immediately. "I'm here. You're safe. Just breathe. It hurts. I know, I'll get the nurse." But before he could move, Catherine gripped his hand. "No, just stay. The pain I can handle. Being alone I can't." So he stayed, holding her hand, watching dawn slowly lighten the windows, grateful beyond measure for the morning he'd feared might not come. The recovery. 5 days after surgery, Catherine returned to Adelaide Cottage. The children had made welcome home signs, and the house was filled with flowers from well-wishers. Normal life felt simultaneously distant and achingly close. William had transformed their bedroom into a recovery suite, medications organized, comfortable pillows arranged, books and tablets within easy reach. His planning extended to scheduling. Carol would stay during William's morning obligations, Anne covered afternoons, and he cleared everything after 4 p.m. "You've thought of everything," Catherine observed, settling gingerly into bed. "I've tried. If there's anything else, there's nothing else. This is perfect." But perfect was relative. Recovery was hard, with pain management, limited mobility, and crushing fatigue. Catherine, accustomed to constant activity, struggled with forced rest. Her body had betrayed her, and trusting it again took time. George, Charlotte, and Louis reacted to their mother's illness in distinctly different ways. George withdrew, spending hours in his room, struggling to process the fear he didn't have language for. Charlotte became hypervigilant, checking on Catherine constantly, needing repeated assurance she was okay. Louis regressed slightly, requiring more physical comfort, nightmares disrupting his sleep. The palace arranged for a family therapist, Dr. Rebecca Walsh, who specialized in helping high-profile families navigate crisis. She met with each child individually, then with William and Catherine together. "They're processing trauma," Dr. Walsh explained. "George feels helpless. He's old enough to understand danger, but young enough to lack control. Charlotte's checking behavior is classic anxiety. How do we help them? William asked. By being honest about your own fear, showing them that feeling scared doesn't mean you're weak, and by maintaining as much routine as possible. Structure creates safety. Catherine implemented Dr. Walsh's advice gradually. She talked to George about her fear, validating his feelings. She established regular check-in times with Charlotte so the constant monitoring became predictable. She held Louis when he needed it, without judgment or pressure to be brave. Slowly, stability returned. 3 weeks post-surgery, Catherine met with her oncology team. The pathology was encouraging. Clean margins, no lymph node involvement, excellent prognosis. But Dr. Worthington recommended 4 cycles of preventative chemotherapy. Your cancer is gone, he explained. But chemo reduces recurrence risk from 10% to 3%. It's insurance. Catherine researched obsessively. The side effects were significant: nausea, fatigue, potential hair loss, and a compromised immune system. 4 months of treatment that would derail her life even further. What do you think I should do? She asked William that evening. I think you should do whatever gives you the best chance of being here for our children's weddings, our grandchildren's births, our old age together. If that means 4 months of hell now, it's worth it. Catherine appreciated his clarity. Decision made, she scheduled treatment to begin in 2 weeks. Enough time to strengthen post-surgery, but no unnecessary delay. 6 weeks after surgery, pressure mounted for Catherine to return to public duties. Tabloids ran headlines about lazy royals and questioned her continued absence. The criticism was vicious, ignorant of her actual condition, and fueled by the palace's continued privacy. William confronted Sir Clive. We need to release more information. People don't understand she had cancer. If we announce that, media scrutiny intensifies. Every chemo session becomes news. Every side effect gets analyzed. Are you prepared for that invasion? Catherine made the decision herself. Release a statement. I had ovarian cancer, caught early and successfully treated. I'm beginning preventative chemotherapy and will return to duties when treatment concludes. That's all they need to know. The statement transformed public perception overnight. Criticism evaporated, replaced by support. But it also meant Catherine's cancer was now public knowledge. Another piece of privacy surrendered to institutional demands. Catherine's first chemotherapy session was scheduled at a private clinic in London. She'd requested minimal security, no media presence, as much normalcy as possible. William accompanied her, determined to be present for every treatment. The process was clinical: intravenous insertion, medication drip, and monitoring. Catherine read during the 2-hour infusion, trying to ignore the poison entering her bloodstream in the name of healing. William worked on his laptop, present but not hovering. By evening, the side effects hit: nausea, despite anti-nausea medication; exhaustion that felt like drowning. Catherine spent the next 3 days largely in bed, unable to keep much food down, struggling with a fatigue that was both physical and existential. This is worse than surgery, she told William on day 2. I know, but it's temporary. Is it? Because right now, 4 cycles feels infinite. William had no answer that wasn't a platitude. So instead he stayed, bringing ginger tea, holding her hair when she was sick, being present through the misery. Week 2 of Catherine's first chemo cycle, Charlotte had a breakdown. The 12-year-old had been so controlled, so carefully brave, that when the dam broke, it was devastating. I can't do this anymore, she sobbed to Catherine. I can't pretend I'm okay when you're sick and everyone's scared and nothing's normal. Catherine, exhausted from treatment, pulled her daughter close. Then don't pretend. Be exactly as not okay as you feel, but you need me to be strong. I need you to be honest. Being strong means acknowledging when you're struggling, asking for help, and letting people support you. You've been doing all that backward, darling. Charlotte cried for an hour, releasing weeks of suppressed fear. Catherine held her through it, grateful that her daughter finally felt safe enough to break. 2 cycles completed, 2 remaining. Catherine was adapting to treatment rhythms, the infusion days, the crash that followed, the gradual recovery before the next cycle. Her hair was thinning but not gone, a small mercy. Her energy was diminished but manageable. William had become an expert at reading her signals, when she needed company versus solitude, when to push her to eat versus accept she couldn't, when to distract with humor versus acknowledge the difficulty. "You're getting good at this," Catherine observed after he'd correctly predicted she needed chicken soup and a mindless TV show. "I'm learning your language better. Only took 15 years of marriage. Better late than never." They were finding their way through crisis, learning that survival wasn't heroic gestures but daily small acts of care. William making tea at 3 a.m. Catherine smiling through nausea for the children's sake. Both of them choosing each other repeatedly through the hardest season of their marriage. December arrived with Catherine's fourth and final chemo session. The oncology team celebrated with her. Final treatment was a milestone, a transition from active battle to vigilant monitoring. "You're done," Dr. Worthington announced after the infusion. "Scans in 3 months, then regular monitoring for 5 years. But you're done with chemo." Catherine felt relief and terror simultaneously. Treatment had been awful, but it had also been purposeful. Now came the uncertainty of waiting, watching, and hoping cancer stayed away. William took her to their favorite restaurant that evening, a celebration, a marker. She couldn't eat much, still nauseous from treatment, but the gesture mattered. "We did it," William said, raising his water glass. "We survived," Catherine corrected. "Did it imply completion? This is ongoing. Then we're surviving. And we'll keep surviving together for as long as it takes." They drank to that, to survival, to partnership, to the messy reality of living beyond the crisis that had almost consumed them. The new normal 3 months post-treatment, Catherine returned to public duties. The event was deliberately low-key, a visit to a children's hospital, familiar territory where she could ease back into royal life without overwhelming pressure. The media presence was intense. Photographers captured every angle, and commentators analyzed her appearance, comparing current images to pre-cancer photos. Catherine had anticipated this but found the reality more intrusive than expected. Inside the hospital, away from cameras, she met children undergoing treatment. One young girl, bald from chemotherapy, looked at Catherine with recognition. "You were sick too," the girl said simply. "I was. I'm better now. Does your hair fall out?" Catherine knelt to eye level. "Some of it did, yes, but it grows back. Everything gets better with time." The girl considered this. "My mom cries when she thinks I'm not looking. That's because she loves you. Sometimes people cry when they're scared, even when they're also hopeful." This conversation, honest, unscripted, human, was why Catherine had returned. The work mattered. These connections mattered. The rest was just performance. 6 months post-surgery, Catherine underwent comprehensive scans. The waiting period was agonizing. 3 days between imaging and results. 3 days of forced normalcy, while terror lurked underneath. William tried maintaining a routine, but Catherine saw through the performance. He was terrified, just better at hiding it than she was. The results came via phone call from Dr. Worthington. Clear, no evidence of recurrence. Everything looks excellent. Catherine felt her knees buckle with relief. William, watching from across the room, saw her face and knew immediately. They held each other, crying, laughing, releasing 6 months of held breath. "We're okay," Catherine whispered. "We're actually okay." George, Charlotte, and Louis had changed during their mother's illness. George had found purpose in supporting his siblings, discovering leadership capacity he hadn't known he possessed. Charlotte had learned to express emotions rather than perform strength. Louis had maintained childhood innocence while gaining a premature understanding of life's fragility. Dr. Walsh, continuing sessions throughout recovery, noted their resilience. They've been through trauma, but they've also witnessed their parents handling crises with grace. That's valuable modeling. Catherine wasn't sure about grace. She remembered the breakdowns, the days she couldn't get out of bed, the times she'd been sharp with the children from pain and exhaustion. But maybe grace wasn't perfection. Maybe it was trying despite everything. 8 months after surgery, Harry returned to Britain for a brief visit. He requested private time with William and Catherine, a request they granted with mixed feelings. They met at Kensington Palace, a neutral ground for a complicated reunion. Harry looked older, weathered by California sun and California headlines. "I'm sorry I wasn't here," he said without preamble. "When you were going through treatment, I should have come back." Catherine answered before William could. "You sent messages, called regularly. That mattered. It wasn't enough. You're my family, and I wasn't here when you needed me." William's expression was complicated, old anger warring with current circumstances. "You made your choices. We've made ours." But Catherine's illness put things in perspective. Life's too short for permanent estrangement. It wasn't reconciliation, But it was thaw, a recognition that shared history and blood mattered, even across disagreement and distance. 1 year after diagnosis, William and Catherine returned to Windsor's gardens, where she'd cut roses the day before, learning about cancer. The roses were blooming again, cycles of death and renewal playing out in soil and stem. "A year ago, I thought my life was ending," Catherine said quietly. "Now it feels like beginning again. Different beginning, though. We're not who we were." "No, but maybe that's okay. Maybe we needed to be broken to rebuild something stronger." William pulled her close. "I prefer not broken Catherine, if I'm honest." "So do I. But since that's not an option, I'll take surviving and stronger Catherine." They walked through gardens that had witnessed centuries of royal drama, births, deaths, scandals, triumphs. Their story was one among thousands, yet uniquely theirs. Catherine's return to full duties was gradual. She'd learned to pace herself, to say no without guilt, to prioritize health over institutional demands. The palace adjusted, grudgingly at first, then with acceptance. She also became an advocate quietly, without fanfare, for early cancer detection. Her presence at oncology events and her willingness to discuss her experience made a tangible difference. Women scheduled screenings they'd postponed. Funding increased for research. Her illness transformed from private tragedy to public purpose. William watched her navigate this new role with admiration. She'd faced death and chosen life, faced fear and chosen courage, faced pressure to perform recovery and chosen honest humanity instead. "You're remarkable," he told her one evening. "I'm just trying to live," Catherine corrected. "Remarkably, ordinarily, gratefully alive." 2 years post-diagnosis, Catherine received news. The 5-year survival rate had been reached, and she was officially in remission. The milestone felt simultaneously monumental and mundane, a celebration and a continuation both. That evening, the family gathered at Anmer Hall. Charles, Camilla, Kate's parents, the children, everyone who'd supported them through the hardest season. No formal dinner, just a casual gathering, stories and laughter, ordinariness that felt precious. George, now 16, raised his glass. "To Mum, for being strong when we needed it, for being honest when that was harder, and for showing us what actual courage looks like." Catherine felt tears threaten. "To family, for holding us when we couldn't stand alone." They drank to that, to survival, to growth, to the messy, beautiful reality of living beyond crisis. Catherine looked around the table at faces she loved, at the children who'd grown through trauma, at William, who'd never wavered. This was the legacy, not perfect strength, but authentic resilience, not avoiding pain, but moving through it, not pretending crisis didn't change them, but allowing it to reveal who they actually were beneath performance. The family was crushed beyond words, yes, but they'd also been rebuilt, not to original specifications, but to something more honest, more durable, more real. And that, Catherine thought, was worth every difficult moment of the journey. How would you handle a health crisis under constant public scrutiny? Catherine's journey reminds us that vulnerability can coexist with strength, and that authentic humanity matters more than perfect performance. What aspects of her recovery resonated most with you? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective adds depth to these conversations. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe for more in-depth explorations of royal life beyond the headlines. Hit that notification bell to never miss our next documentary. What royal story should we tackle next? Drop your suggestions below. Remember, survival isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, being honest, and choosing courage even when you're terrified. Thank you for watching.